The 501st Legion was perhaps the most well-known military unit in the entire Star Wars universe. From the Clone Wars to the Galactic Civil War and beyond, the elite troops of the 501st doggedly carried out the will of the galactic government, crushing resistance at every turn. During the Clone Wars, the 501st was one of the most elite units of regular clones in the Grand Army of the Republic, serving under General Anakin Skywalker. Under the Empire, the 501st became Vader's fist, composed only of the most ruthless stormtroopers. In this video, we'll be telling the full legend story of the 501st, from Geonosis to Endor and beyond. First things first, let's talk about legions. Legions weren't actually a formal part of the GAR command structure. Rather, Legion was just a nickname for elite units. The 501st was actually a brigade which was in the upper middle of the GAR's order of battle. Brigades were composed of 9,216 troopers which subdivided into 4 regiments, 16 battalions, 64 companies, 256 platoons, and 1,024 squads. Each brigade was commanded by a senior commander and a Jedi general. Structurally, the 501st was no different from other brigades, at least not at first. Though it was important, as early on in the Kaminoans' cloning program, the unit was selected for special treatment. On the request of the Grand Army's shadowy backers, the Kaminoans selected the 501st to receive top-notch training, organizing the best performing clone trainee squads into the Legion. By the time the Clone Wars kicked off, the 501st was already the best of the batch. It was also one of the first clone units to be battle ready and saw action in the war's very first engagement. In the Battle of Geonosis, the 501st served on General Windu's battlefront, establishing forward positions and escorting ATTE walkers in an assault on the Techno-Union's grounded hard cell transports. On Geonosis, the 501st had its first clash with the CIS droid army. The battle was bloody and, as one veteran later recounted, nothing like the simulations on Kamino, but it ended with a Republic victory and most of the 501st made it off Geonosis alive. After Geonosis, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine recalled the 501st Legion to Coruscant. There, the 501st was put through a top-secret training regimen, christening the unit as the Chancellor's Elite. The 501st was informed that it would be called upon to carry out special missions for Palpatine, a duty the Legion's clones accepted. After this additional training was complete, members of the 501st were sprinkled throughout other clone units to serve as the Chancellor's personal agents, and the rest of the Legion was sent to the front lines. The 501st participated in many battles during the early months of the Clone Wars, with many of its subdivisions acting as reinforcements for other units. In the early war, the 501st had no permanent commander, rotating between different theaters of war. This changed at the end of 22 BBY, when the entire 501st was placed under the command of the newly promoted General Skywalker. Skywalker made Captain Rex his second in command, a significant break in the typical command structure. Unlike many early war clone officers, Rex wasn't originally a captain. He had been promoted from private for heroic actions during the Battle of Geonosis, and he had risen through the ranks until he was in command of Torrent Company. From there, he leapfrogged 4 whole ranks to take command of the entire Legion on Skywalker's prerogative. Why Anakin didn't just promote Rex to senior commander is beyond us, as he certainly had the authority to, but we digress. Under Rex's de facto command, Torrent Company became the spearhead of the 501st, leading the charge as the 501st saw action on new battlegrounds. Late in 22 BBY, the Legion played a critical role in the Battle of Christosis, acting as the vanguard of the Republic force in the retaking of Chelidonia, the capital. During the battle, Ahsoka Tano was assigned as General Skywalker's new Padawan, integrating her into the 501st's command structure. Tano was instrumental in the eventual Republic victory on Christosis and was readily accepted by the clones of the 501st as their new Jedi commander. After Christosis, Skywalker, Tano, Rex, and Torrent Company transferred to Teth, where they launched an assault against a separatist-held monastery where Dooku's agents were holding Jabba the Hutt's son, Rota, prisoner. While Skywalker and Tano rescued the Huttlet and headed to Tatooine, Torrent Company fought nearly to the last man while defending the monastery against a second wave of Separatist forces. The timely arrival of reinforcements saved the Torrent Company from being wiped out entirely, but by the end of the battle, Rex was down to just 5 troopers. Torrent Company's numbers were soon replenished, but Rex was nonetheless distraught at the loss of his brothers, and the scars of Teth lingered long after the battle. Rex had little time to mourn, however. As soon as it was at fighting strength, Torrent Company was sent back to the front lines. It played a key role in the Battle of Bothawui, destroying several of General Grievous's cruisers with asteroid-mounted ATTEs, and a detachment of Torrent Company helped destroy Skytop Station, a major Separatist listening post. Rex and 6 troopers from Torrent Company also played a major role in the Battle of Janfathal, rescuing Republic operative Helena Davis, who had been captured by Separatist rebels opposed to Janfathal's tyrannical pro-Republic government. Torrent Company and the rest of the 501st remained on the front lines well into 21 BBY. As other detachments of the 501st assisted embattled clone units on other fronts, Torrent Company helped evacuate Republic forces during the Battle of Quell and recaptured a crucial Bothan Spynet facility from General Grievous in the Battle of Kothlis. The Battle of Kothlis was one of the 501st's finest hours, but it also severely depleted Torrent Company once again, landing Rex and many other clones in Bacta tanks. They recovered quickly enough to participate in the Battle of Ryloth, where Torrent Company mopped up Separatist forces at the remote city of Resden. In case you couldn't tell, Torrent Company had a tendency to suffer extreme casualties. In the early war, when the 501st was typically split up and Torrent Company operated solo, Rex lost nearly all of his men on multiple occasions, so he was always looking to recruit new troopers from other units. Many of these new recruits didn't last, fueling Rex's enduring guilt. As a veteran of the 501st would later remark, the Legion truly saw the worst of the war. After Ryloth, the 501st Legion was deployed more frequently as a whole unit. The Legion kept suffering heavy casualties, losing many men in the First Battle of Felucia and the Battle of Malastare, but it no less remained integral to the Republic war effort. After Malastare, the 501st was one of several major clone units to participate in the Second Battle of Geonosis, following up on intel gathered by Captain Rex about new Separatist droid factories. The 501st joined in the grueling first landing at Point Rain, and for once, it suffered fewer casualties than its accompanying units, allowing Skywalker and his men to lead the assault on the Geonosian's main factory. While Commander Tano and Barriss Offee sabotaged the factory from inside, the 501st provided a distraction at the factory gates. After the main factory was destroyed, the 501st took charge of mop-up duty, with detachments from the Legion putting down Geonosian holdouts across the planet. Throughout 21 BBY, the 501st fought in a number of other important battles. On Seleucami, it participated in an unsuccessful mission to capture General Grievous, who had been shot down following a pitched space battle. When the Republic learned of an impending Separatist assault on Kamino, the 501st was recalled to defend the Grand Army's homeworld. The Legion fought ferociously against the Separatist invaders and narrowly managed to stave them off, though yet again, this came at a high cost. 2 troopers from the 501st, Fives and Echo, played an especially important role in the battle, for which they were made ARC troopers. As ARCs, Echo and Fives became independent, but they continued to work with the Legion on key missions. Late in 21 BBY, the Kaminoan armorsmiths unveiled brand new Phase 2 armor, which was quickly adopted across the GAR. Prior to the switch, many clones in the 501st painted their armor with blue stripes, but the adoption of Phase 2 made this color scheme the official signifier of the Legion. Not everyone in the 501st was happy with the change of gear though. Captain Rex had mixed feelings about it, so he ended up hybridizing his new kit with his old Phase 1 suit, welding parts of both sets together to create what was, in his opinion, the perfect suit of clone armor. The 501st's new gear first saw action in the Battle of Umbara, one of the bloodiest conflicts of the entire war. Early in the battle, General Skywalker was recalled to Coruscant and the 501st was placed under the temporary command of General Pong Krell. Krell drove the 501st into minefields and through narrow jungle passes, incurring heavy casualties at every turn. By this point, however, Rex had stocked the Legion with some of the most independent-minded clones in the Grand Army. They weren't as willing to take Krell's abuse as most clones would have been. At first, the 501st simply worked around Krell, finding creative solutions to the problems he landed the unit in. But as casualties mounted, some of Rex's men began openly defying orders. This culminated in 3 clones stealing captured Umbaran starfighters and destroying a separatist battleship in orbit, which turned the tide of the battle but infuriated General Krell. He ordered the clones to be executed, but the men of the 501st refused to carry out the order. In retaliation, Krell orchestrated a friendly fire incident in the jungle, pitting the 501st against a platoon from the 212th Attack Battalion. Many clones perished in the skirmish, and when it was discovered that Krell orchestrated it, Rex and his men chose to arrest Krell for treason. After a short battle, the traitorous Jedi General was subdued and executed. Around the same time, the 212th captured the Umbaran capital. The battle was won, but the 501st, as usual, had suffered enormously for the victory, and none of its men would readily forget the treachery of General Krell. In 20 BBY, Ahsoka Tano left the Jedi Order and was stripped of her rank in the GAR. Many in the 501st were saddened by her departure, but neither they nor General Skywalker had much time to mourn. The demands of the war brought the Legion to Ringo Vinda, where the 501st and other clone units fought a back-and-forth war against Admiral Trench's armies. The 501st came close to breaking the stalemate, but Republic forces lost their momentum after Tup, one of Rex's men, suddenly executed Jedi General Tiplar mid-battle. Tup's erratic behavior baffled the remaining Jedi generals, and while Republic intelligence chalked it up to a Ringo-Vindian parasite, it still cost the Republic the battle. The 501st returned to Coruscant and later participated in the Battle of Scipio, seizing the crucial banking clan world for the Republic. General Skywalker, Captain Rex, and the rest of the 501st continued to fight on the front lines for the rest of the war. In canon, they stuck together until the Battle of Coruscant, when Rex and the 332nd Battalion detached and fought in the Siege of Mandalore. The Siege of Mandalore isn't a thing in Legends, however, so we won't be discussing it in this video. Regardless, at one point in the latter days of the war, Senior Commander Appo replaced Rex as the de facto leader of the 501st Legion. Now, at this point, we need to pause to discuss continuity, and not just because of Mandalore. If you've played the original Battlefront 2, you know that it's time for us to discuss the Journal of the 501st, which told the story of the Legion's missions in the final days of the war. But there's one small problem with the Journal of the 501st. It can't possibly be correct. All but one of the missions in the journal would have had to happen over the space of just 3 days, which means that either the timeline the journal presents is wrong or different detachments of the 501st carried out the missions, and thus the narrator's implication that he was present for all of them is wrong. We're going to go with the second assumption, mostly because the 501st veteran story is improbable in more ways than one continuity snarl. If we take his version of events literally, then this clone served on the front lines for 25 years straight, and he would have been 70 by the time of the last battle he claims to have served in. With that in mind, we're going to write him off and go with our different detachments theory for all Journal of the 501st material going forward. Hope that makes sense, and without further ado, let's get back into the story. In 19 BBY, the 501st Legion was one of many clone units assigned to the Outer Rim sieges. Detachments of the 501st fought all over the galaxy, in hotspots, and wherever else the Chancellor wanted them to. Very late in the war, one such detachment of the 501st was sent to Megiddo to fight alongside Ki-Adi-Mundi and the Galactic Marines. Officially, they were to help Mundi capture a key Mygeetan city, but they had actually been sent to further Project Hammertong, the Republic's secret superlaser project. On Megiddo, the 501st stole a special Mygeetan power crystal and destroyed all evidence of the theft, all without Mundi suspecting a thing. Not long afterwards, the main detachment of the Legion was stationed on Coruscant. When General Grievous attacked, 501st troopers helped the Coruscant Guard fight the droid invasion forces on the ground, while other members of the Legion were pressed into service as reserve fighter pilots. With their help, the Battle of Coruscant was eventually won, but the 501st had little time to celebrate. After the Confederacy's defeat on Coruscant, the Republic launched a massive counterattack. its armies and fleets bolstered by vast numbers of reinforcements that had been held in reserve at Coruscant. The 501st was divided up into smaller units and sent into the fray on several fronts. One detachment of the Legion was sent to Felucia, where it cleared a staging ground for the 327th Star Corps. Another was sent to Kashyyyk, where it punched a hole in the Separatist blockade and assisted in the early stages of the battle at Kachiro. Yet another accompanied General Kenobi and the 7th Star Corps to Utapau, where General Grievous was slain and another Separatist army was routed. On all three fronts, the 501st was wildly successful, and within just a few days of the Battle of Coruscant, the CIS was on the verge of defeat. But just before the war came to an end, the 501st was recalled to Coruscant for one last mission. The whole 501st Legion was, once again, placed under the command of General Skywalker, now Darth Vader, and Commander Appo. As night fell on Coruscant, Vader and Appo led the Legion in a march on the Jedi Temple. As Order 66 was issued all over the galaxy, the 501st carried out Operation Knightfall, storming the temple and killing every Jedi they encountered. Vader and the clones slaughtered thousands of Jedi that day, as well as the remaining members of the temple security force. Once the Jedi were slain, the clones secured the temple, which was partially set ablaze during the battle. Vader issued the temple's automatic recall beacon, summoning any surviving Jedi back to Coruscant. Commander Appo organized decoy squads of clones dressed in Jedi robes to kill any survivors who took the bait. The 501st failed to stop Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi from returning to the temple prior to their self-imposed exiles, but they killed several Jedi who fell into their trap, as well as others that were found at the temple. The 501st Legion's actions during Operation Knightfall earned the Legion's men a reputation as Jedi killers, and in the Great Jedi Purge, the 501st was sent all over the galaxy to deal with rogue Jedi, as its troopers possessed more experience in that field than any other clones. After Operation Knightfall, the Republic was reorganized into the Galactic Empire. The men of the 501st Legion became stormtroopers, though at first this change was purely symbolic. While the 501st had been just one brigade under the 3rd System's army, under the Empire it was an independent entity within the Stormtrooper Corps. It answered to Vader and the Emperor only. During the transition period, other parts of the Grand Army of the Republic were rolled into the 501st Legion, including the Republic's Special Operations Brigade. All surviving clone commandos and ARC troopers were organized into the Imperial Commando Special Unit, which was attached to the 501st and followed the same command structure. During the reclamation of the Rim, the Empire's campaign against the Separatist holdouts, the 501st Legion was brought in to crush particularly tough Separatist cells and rebels associated with Jedi survivors. On Kessel, Appo and the 501st helped Lord Vader slaughter a conclave of 8 Jedi survivors, while on New Plimto, Commander Vil of the Legion crushed a Jedi-led holdout in the Battle of Half-Axe Pass. On Murkana, Vader and the 501st tried to kill a few more Jedi survivors, only for the Jedi to escape. Vader, Appo and their troops pursued the Jedi to Kashyyyk, where a fierce battle against the Jedi survivors and their Wookiee allies ensued. The 501st ultimately won the battle, but Appo was killed in the fighting. He was replaced by Commander Voka, who didn't last long. He and many other 501st stormtroopers were murdered by traitorous commandos during a mission to the Otoa system. By the start of the Dark Times, the 501st Legion had gained a reputation for its brutality and efficiency, earning the nickname Vader's Fist. The men of the 501st gradually did away with their old Clone Wars era gear, abandoning their iconic blue color scheme in favor of bright white stormtrooper armor. One of their first missions after the armor upgrade was an assault on Naboo, which was threatening violent insurrection against the Empire. On Vader's orders, the 501st assassinated Queen Apelana and her guard, as well as several Jedi she had been sheltering, allowing the Empire to install a new puppet regime on the planet. While this incident set an example to many other would-be rebel worlds, the 501st was nonetheless called upon to put down similar insurrections many times during the reign of the Empire. Early rebel cells weren't the 501st's only enemies during the Dark Times either. Vader's Fist crushed a number of persistent Separatist holdouts after the campaign against them officially ended, with the most notable being Gaizor Delso's 12 BBY rebellion on Mustafar. Like many Dark Times era holdouts, Delso had found a warehouse of deactivated battle droids and switched them back on. His insurrection was different, however. He had found a whole factory and had managed to reactivate a fleet of warships to protect it. But the 501st punched through this blockade, and at length, Delso was killed and his factory destroyed. This was a close call for the Legion, as Delso was designing a new advanced battle droid line, which, luckily for the Empire, never saw the light of day. Shortly after that, the 501st crushed an even worse threat to Imperial supremacy, the Kaminoan Clone Rebellion. As the Stormtrooper Corps began making use of other cloning facilities, the Kaminoans felt threatened and they bred a second army of anti-troopers in secret. Once this was complete, Kamino tried to break away from the Empire and become its own galactic power. Naturally, the 501st Legion was sent in to end this threat, assisted by bounty hunter Boba Fett. The Kaminoans put up a fierce resistance, but not even they could walk off a Vader's fisting. The rogue Kaminoan clone masters were taken out and their operations were dismantled. In the years that followed, the Stormtrooper Corps all but abandoned Kamino, opting to recruit natural-born humans or buy clones from other clone masters instead. The 501st remained mostly pure, but the rest of the Stormtrooper Corps rapidly diversified. As the dark times went on, the 501st remained the most feared Legion in the Stormtrooper Corps, but a full decade of little resistance to the Empire caused the Legion and the rest of the Imperial military to atrophy. They became complacent, and as often happens, their complacency ultimately bit them in the ass. The first signs of this came in 2 BBY when the 501st had a hard time putting down a prisoner riot during a rotation aboard the Death Star. Things would only get worse for the 501st, if better for the rest of the galaxy. Later that year, the Alliance to restore the Republic rose up against the Empire. The Empire didn't take the rebellion seriously at first, but as the Alliance grew bolder and gained ground, the Imperials realized that it posed a serious threat. More than once, the 501st Legion was called in to put down rebel cells, and even they had a tough time with it. Before long, a full-scale civil war erupted. 2 years into the Galactic Civil War, the rebels captured the schematics of the recently completed Death Star, and Vader and the 501st Legion were called in to recapture the plans. The hunt first led the Legion to Polis Massa, where they fought a grueling battle against the rebels, only to find that the plans were on the other side of the galaxy. The Legion rejoined Vader aboard the Star Destroyer Devastator and pursued a team of rebel operatives to Toprawa, where the Death Star plans were transmitted to the Tantive IV, a consular ship belonging to Princess Leia of Alderaan. The Devastator pursued the Tantive IV from Toprawa to Tatooine, where the 501st Legion captured the ship after a brief but heated firefight. Of course, as we all know, the Death Star plans escaped the Tantive IV aboard a pair of droids, and the rebels ended up destroying the Death Star in the Battle of Yavin. 2/3 of the 501st Legion perished aboard the Death Star when it blew up, and the survivors were scattered. Shocked and outraged that the rebels were evil enough to destroy their giant genocide ball, the remainder of the 501st regrouped with Imperial Navy units in the Yavin system, which had formed a blockade of the Forest Moon. This blockade remained in place for 6 months, destroying numerous rebel warships that attempted to escape. 6 months after the Battle of Yavin, Darth Vader took command of the blockade from the bridge of his new flagship, the Star Dreadnought Executor. Once the Executor arrived in the Yavin system, Imperial forces began a ground assault on the Alliance's secret headquarters. The 501st Legion led the assault on the Massassi base, slaughtering any rebel soldiers that got in their way, assassinating several members of the Alliance leadership and capturing General Dodona. However, only a small portion of Alliance leadership had been present on Yavin to begin with. The vast majority of the rebel fleet and all of its commanding officers were scattered throughout the galaxy, as was the political leadership of the Alliance, and the rebel leaders that escaped Yavin regrouped with them in short order. Together with Death Squadron, a fleet group led by the Executor, the 501st Legion spent the next 3 years hunting the rebels, especially Princess Leia and the Alliance's newest hero, Luke Skywalker. In 3 ABY, after many unsuccessful attempts at capturing key rebel leaders, the rebels' new base was discovered on Hoth. Darth Vader ordered it to be destroyed from orbit, but Death Squadron emerged from hyperspace too close to Hoth. The rebels activated Echo Base's shields before the Executor could bomb it to hell, necessitating a ground assault. Together with Blizzard Force, the 501st Legion deployed on Hoth and stormed Echo Base, which was ultimately captured and destroyed. Roughly half of the Echo base garrison escaped Hoth, including numerous important leaders, but the Battle of Hoth was nonetheless a decisive victory for the Empire. Veterans of the 501st would consider the battle to be the Legion's finest hour. After Hoth, the Rebel Alliance seemed to be on the verge of defeat. What was left of the Alliance regrouped with the Rebel fleet and fled known space, giving the Imperials a false sense of security. However, Lord Vader and Emperor Palpatine knew full well that the rebels were still out there and growing stronger by the day. Hoping to eliminate the Alliance once and for all, the Emperor planned a trap in the Endor system, where a second Death Star was under construction. In the Battle of Endor, the entire Rebel fleet was lured into attacking the second Death Star, which the Emperor was known to be aboard. The rebels planned to send a strike force to the forest moon of Endor, where the external shield generator that protected the Death Star was stationed. The Rebel fleet was to jump in just as the shield was destroyed, allowing them to take out the Death Star and Emperor in one swift move. Of course, this is exactly what Palpatine had expected them to do. Death Squadron and hundreds of other Imperial warships were waiting for them, while the 501st Legion, Tempest Force, and other elite Stormtrooper units were waiting on the moon itself. The 501st prevented the Rebel ground team from destroying the bunker, and when the Rebel fleet arrived, it found itself under fire from a fully operational Death Star. Before the fleet could escape, more Star Destroyers arrived to close the trap, but the Emperor's plan went sideways. On the forest moon, the rebels allied with the indigenous Ewoks, who massacred Tempest Force and the 501st, allowing the rebels to destroy the shield generator. With the shield down, the Death Star was swiftly destroyed. Vader, the Emperor, and 2 Grand Admirals were killed, and dozens of ships, including the Executor, were blown to smithereens. The Battle of Endor left the Empire in shambles, and the Alliance capitalized on this by formally becoming the New Republic. The remnants of the 501st Legion escaped Endor in disarray, and as the Empire fragmented, the Legion's surviving men were divided up by power-hungry warlords. Vader's fist met its end in the Battle of Endor, but the legacy of the original 501st Legion lived on. 5 years after Endor, Grand Admiral Thrawn had more or less unified remnants of the Empire, which had been driven back into the Outer Rim by the ascendant New Republic. In 9 ABY, Thrawn reformed the 501st Legion, capitalizing on the unit's infamy, albeit in a radically different form. The new 501st was almost entirely composed of recruited stormtroopers, many of them non-humans, as Thrawn recruited the best of the best, irrespective of species. The 501st's mission changed as well. It was assigned to defend the Empire of the Hand, an imperial vassal formed by Thrawn out in the remote reaches of the unknown regions. The reformed 501st Legion essentially sat out the rest of the Galactic Civil War. After Thrawn's death, the Empire of the Hand remained a secret known only to a few in the Empire, as did the 501st. By the time the reformation of the 501st Legion had become public knowledge, the Imperial Remnant had made peace with the New Republic. Nonetheless, the 501st Legion endured. It saw action during the Yuuzhan Vong War and survived long into the Legacy era, when the Imperial Remnant became a new empire. By 137 ABY, the 501st Legion were the elite shock troopers of Emperor Roan Fel, remaining a unit to be feared over 150 years after the founding of the original Legion. The 501st Legion was one of the most feared military units in galactic history, as befitting the personal death squad of an emotionally unstable Sith Lord. But what do you think? Did you know that the 501st had so much history? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and what your suggestions for the next long videos are. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.